Imagine a temple without walls, built not of stone, but of silence. Inside, a group of disciples sit in absolute stillness, their eyes closed, their minds sharpened like a blade on the whetstone of the cosmos. At the center stands a man draped in white, his presence so commanding that even the air seems to hold its breath. His voice, when it finally comes, is not loud, but it is the kind of voice that feels as though it was there before the world began. This man is Pythagoras. Yes, the same name you might remember from school, the man of triangles and numbers. But what most of us were never told is that Pythagoras was far more than a mathematician. He was a mystic, an initiate into secret orders, a traveler through the temples of Egypt and Babylon, a seeker of truths so profound that they could not be spoken openly. For Pythagoras, numbers were not merely tools for measuring the material world. They were living, breathing principles of reality itself. To him, mathematics was not dry calculation, but the language of the divine. Each ratio, each pattern, each vibration was a bridge between the human mind and the eternal order of the cosmos. Yet over centuries, the deeper half of his teachings was buried under dust and misunderstanding. The man who once taught about the music of the spheres, the sacred geometry of the soul, and the path of inner purification has been reduced to a textbook formula, A2 plus B2 equals C2. This video is not about that formula. This is about the forgotten teachings, the ones whispered behind closed doors in the dark of night, the ones reserved only for those who had sworn an oath of silence and discipline. Teachings that reveal how reality is structured, how harmony can be lived, and how the human spirit can align itself with the secret architecture of existence. We will journey together into Pythagoras' world, not the one of chalkboards and rulers, but the one of initiates and temples. We will explore his life as a mystic philosopher, uncover the hidden meanings in his numerical code, and learn how his principles can still transform our minds, our bodies, and our destinies today. If you think Pythagoras was just about triangles, prepare to have your perception shattered, because numbers have souls and the cosmos is singing. To understand the forgotten teachings of Pythagoras, we must first step back, far beyond the marble columns of ancient Greece, and even further into the sacred corridors of civilizations that predate him. Pythagoras was born around 570 BCE on the island of Samos, a crossroads where cultures, merchants, and mystics converged. From an early age, he displayed an insatiable hunger for truth, not the truth of mere opinion, but the kind that echoes through the soul like the ring of a perfect bell. It is said that this hunger led him far from his birthplace. Legends, whispered more than recorded, tell of his journeys to Egypt, where he studied under priests in temples older than memory. Here, among towering pylons and chambers carved with star maps, Pythagoras learned that numbers were sacred symbols, the very bones of reality. The Egyptians spoke of Ma'at, the cosmic order, truth, balance, harmony, principles that would later become the foundation of his own philosophy. From Egypt, some accounts suggest he traveled to Babylon, where the Chaldean astronomers revealed to him the mathematics of the heavens. There, numbers were not abstractions, but keys to the divine clockwork of the cosmos. Each movement of the stars was a note in a vast, celestial symphony, a concept Pythagoras would later call the music of the spheres. When he finally returned to Greece, Pythagoras did not settle into the role of a public teacher. Instead, he founded a secretive brotherhood in Croton, a city in southern Italy. Membership was by initiation only, and the teachings were tiered, outer lessons for the curious and inner doctrines for the devoted. The Pythagorean brotherhood functioned almost like a spiritual order. Members adhered to strict ethical rules. They practiced vegetarianism, lived communally, and observed extended periods of silence to sharpen the mind. They studied mathematics, music, astronomy, and philosophy, not as separate disciplines, but as different expressions of one unifying truth. At the heart of this truth was a belief both simple and staggering. All things are numbers, not in the cold, mechanical sense, but in the mystical realization that everything, your heartbeat, the shape of a seashell, the orbit of planets, arises from underlying numerical patterns. To know these patterns was to glimpse the mind of the divine. Yet Pythagoras' philosophy was not merely intellectual. It was a path of transformation. The numbers were not just to be studied, they were to be lived. Harmony was not an abstract concept, but a state one could embody. His school taught that by aligning the soul with the hidden mathematics of the universe, one could achieve purification, insight, and even a kind of immortality. And so Pythagoras' legacy was woven from many threads: Egyptian mysticism, Babylonian astronomy, Greek philosophy, all bound by the conviction that reality is not chaos but a song, if you know how to listen. If Pythagoras were alive today and you asked him, "What is the world made of?" he would not say atoms or energy. He would look you in the eye and say, "Numbers." To the modern mind, that might sound simplistic, but in the Pythagorean sense, numbers were not just quantities. They were qualities, living archetypes, cosmic forces that gave birth to form, sound, and even consciousness itself. Pythagoras taught that before matter existed, there was an underlying order, an invisible blueprint written in the language of number. To him, the number one was not just one. It was the monad, the source, the unmanifest unity from which all diversity flows. The number two, the dyad, represented duality, light and dark, male and female, finite and infinite. Three, the triad, was the first true harmony, a resolution of opposites. And four, the tetrad, was the foundation of the material world, symbolized by the square, stability, in the four elements. From these principles, Pythagoras derived one of his most famous symbols, the Tetractys. Picture a triangular arrangement of 10 points, one at the top, then two below it, then three, then four. This sacred figure, he said, contained the mysteries of the universe, the sum of the first four numbers, Esoteric 1 upon 2 plus 3 plus 10, representing completion and perfection. The Tetractys was not just a teaching diagram, it was a meditative gateway. Disciples would contemplate it in silence, seeing within its geometry the birth of all existence, from unity to polarity to harmony to manifestation. For Pythagoras, contemplating the Tetractys was akin to contemplating God's own mind. But his teachings went deeper still. He spoke of harmony not as a mere musical term, but as the governing principle of life. The strings of a lyre, when tuned to certain ratios, would produce sounds that felt pure, uplifting, and balanced. These same ratios, 1.2, the octave, 2.3, the fifth, 3.4, the fourth, were to him not accidental, but reflections of a universal law, that beauty, health, and order arise when the right proportions are present. Pythagoras extended this law of harmony beyond music. He believed the body too could be tuned like an instrument. Disharmony in the soul, he said, led to illness and misfortune, while living in harmony with oneself, with others, with nature, brought health, clarity, and alignment with the cosmos. In this way, numbers became more than mathematical symbols. They were moral and spiritual guides. The number one taught unity, reminding us that all beings share a common source. The number two reminded us of the dance of opposites and the need to reconcile them. The number three inspired creativity and balance. The number four grounded us in the material world, urging stability and responsibility. This was the first great revelation of Pythagoras' hidden doctrine, that the laws of mathematics are not out there in the stars. They are also in here, shaping the soul. If the first half of Pythagoras' teachings revealed the universe as a great symphony of numbers, the second half whispered an even deeper truth. We ourselves are instruments in that symphony. Pythagoras taught that the human soul was not bound entirely to the body. It was a fragment of the divine, bound by the laws of harmony just as planets and stars are. He believed the soul had a mathematical structure, a vibrational signature, and that through discipline, it could be tuned to higher states of awareness. Here is where his philosophy begins to cross the threshold into the mystical. Pythagoras spoke of metempsychosis, the transmigration of the soul, or reincarnation. He claimed to remember his own past lives, including one as a warrior in the Trojan War. For him, reincarnation was not a matter of faith, but of cosmic necessity. The soul, imperfectly tuned, returns to the physical world again and again until it achieves the perfect harmony that frees it from the cycle. This is also why his brotherhood placed such emphasis on purity, not in a moralistic sense, but as a method of spiritual tuning. Diet, meditation, ethical conduct, music, and geometry were all tools for refining the vibration of the soul. Each act, each thought, was either bringing you closer to the divine pitch or pushing you further into dissonance. Another key aspect of the hidden doctrine was the music of the spheres. Pythagoras taught that the planets themselves, as they moved through space, generated a kind of music, not audible to human ears, but real nonetheless. Each celestial body had its own tone, determined by its speed and distance, and together they formed a cosmic chord. The fact that we cannot hear this music, he said, was not because it does not exist, but because it has always been sounding. It is the constant background hum of existence, so ever-present that we have forgotten how to notice it. To the initiated, understanding this celestial harmony was more than astronomy. It was an act of alignment. By living in proportion, in rhythm, in balance, one could join the song. One's life could become a note that resonates with the entire universe. Finally, Pythagoras warned of what happens when harmony is ignored. He saw disorder, greed, injustice, and cruelty as forms of spiritual noise, static that clouds the soul's clarity. Just as an untuned lyre produces harsh, grating sounds, so too does a life out of alignment produce suffering, chaos, and disconnection from truth. To live the Pythagorean way was not to worship numbers in the abstract. It was to recognize that the same ratios that govern the turning of the stars also govern the beating of your heart, the structure of your thoughts, and the path of your destiny. And once you see that, you can no longer live as though life were random. You begin to hear the hidden melody and realize you were meant to play your part all along. Pythagoras' wisdom may be cloaked in ancient mystery, but it was never meant to remain locked away in temples or hidden manuscripts. His teachings were designed to be lived, to transform the way we move through the world. Let us begin with one of his simplest yet most profound instructions: seek harmony in all things. To Pythagoras, harmony was not merely a pleasant sound, it was a universal law. In your own life, this means aligning your actions, thoughts, and surroundings with proportion, balance, and rhythm. Ask yourself, does my daily routine nourish my mind, my body, and my spirit equally? Or am I overdeveloping one at the expense of the others? A powerful way to practice this is to tune your environment as you would tune an instrument. Surround yourself with beauty that reflects natural order. Clean spaces, flowing lines, harmonious colors. Even subtle changes, a well-placed plant, a piece of art with geometric symmetry, can shift your state of mind into greater balance. Second, live by the discipline of numbers. Pythagoras taught that numbers are living archetypes. You can use them as daily meditations. Contemplate 1 to remember unity and connection with all life. Reflect on 2 when facing conflict, seeking reconciliation between opposites. Invoke 3 when needing creativity and synthesis. Ground yourself in 4 when stability and practicality are required. By bringing numerical symbolism into your self-reflection, you begin to see patterns in your own life, recurring cycles, hidden rhythms, and opportunities for alignment. Third, use sound as medicine. Pythagoras believed music could purify the soul. Experiment with tones, chants, or instruments that resonate with you. Even listening to music tuned to natural ratios, such as 432 Hz, can create a sense of calm and clarity. You might also use your own voice, humming, chanting, or singing, as a way to realign your inner vibration. Fourth, practice ethical harmony. The Pythagorean brotherhood lived by a strict moral code, not out of superstition, but because ethics tune the soul. Acts of kindness, honesty, and self-restraint remove dissonance from your spiritual instrument. This does not mean perfection, but rather constant, conscious adjustment, just as a musician continually tunes their strings. Finally, embrace the cosmic perspective. When life feels chaotic, imagine the music of the spheres, the planets moving in perfect, silent symphony. Remember that your struggles, while real, are part of a larger order you may not yet see. This mindset dissolves anxiety and replaces it with trust, allowing you to act with wisdom rather than fear. The real challenge and the real gift of Pythagoras' teaching is that it calls for active participation. It's not enough to understand harmony. You must become harmonious. Every choice is a note, every thought is a chord, and your life is the song you are composing. We began this journey with an image, a temple without walls, where silence was the doorway to understanding. Now perhaps you can see why Pythagoras' disciples sat so still. They were not waiting for wisdom to arrive from outside. They were tuning themselves to hear the music that had been playing since the dawn of time. Pythagoras' forgotten teachings remind us that reality is not chaos. It is patterned, ordered, and alive with meaning. Numbers are not cold abstractions. They are living principles, the architecture of both the cosmos and the soul. Harmony is not a luxury. It is the condition for clarity, health, and spiritual awakening. In his time, these truths were whispered behind closed doors, guarded by oaths of silence. Today, they are ours to rediscover, not as relics of a bygone era, but as tools for navigating the noise and fragmentation of modern life. The lesson is as simple as it is profound. You are not separate from the great order of the universe. You are a note in its eternal song, and just as a musician can choose to play in tune or out of tune, you can choose to live in harmony or in dissonance. So tune your thoughts to unity, your actions to proportion, your relationships to balance. Listen for the hidden rhythm beneath your days, and let your life become a melody worth remembering. Because somewhere, in the silent space between your heartbeats and the turning of the stars, the ancient music of the spheres is still playing, and it has been waiting for you to join in.